So when you think of all the people that a head coach is asked to be a leader to, it can feel a little bit overwhelming, right? Here's how I break it down. Level one, you got to lead yourself. You've got to take care of yourself. You got to grow your leadership. You got to show up for your team day in and day out. And if you don't do that, well, as we've talked about many times in this podcast, there's a massive drop off. Level two, you got to lead your coaches. Some might have said, well, that's lead your players, but even in a youth team with 2, 3, or 4 coaches, you need to have an aligned coaching team. And so you got to lead them. Level three is, I think, is lead your athletes. This is obvious where, in coaching, like you got to be able to communicate, motivate, build relationships, and hold them accountable. Level four is lead your athletes' families. This is where I get some pushback, but the truth is families, parents in particular at the youth level, they're a part of your culture whether you want it or not. Like pro teams really understand this. They actually really work to engage families, right? Spouses, partners of the professional athletes. So as coaches, we have to work to positively influence and create buy-in within the family. So there's the right support around the athlete. Level 5, many people kind of ignore this, but that is community, right? We are a leader to the community. And so whether our team's a part of a school, club, university, or a pro team, your community has an influence on your team, even if it's just like the community's values and culture. But however, in most cases, people outside of the family have at least an interest, if not an obsession, with your team's results, your team's performance. So last month, Nate and I, we interviewed Rob Dow, the head coach of the recent NCAA Division I National Championship men's soccer team, the University of Vermont, UVM. And what has still resonated with me about our conversation is how Rob is actually attentive to all 5 of those levels as a leader. In our next 2 episodes of the podcast, you're going to hear about how he leads himself, how he leads his staff, how he builds relationships with his players and leads them, how he involves and engages and leads the families of his athletes, and most incredibly, I think, is that he has a real deep connection with the community, right? That level, 5th level, and that like connection is honestly, from what his perspective was, one that is keeping him at UVM when he could be making a lot of money elsewhere. So it's a really incredible conversation with Coach Dow we have on the podcast the next 2 episodes. Coach Dow has been at the helm since 2017, and in his 8 seasons, he's compiled an impressive 95-40 record, leading the Catamounts to consistent winning seasons and top finishes in the American East Conference. A true architect of culture, right? He's a cultural architect, I like to call him. Coach Dow has guided UVM to their first ever NCAA national championship. He did that last year in 2024. It was a historic achievement that also saw them get a number 1 national ranking. His leadership earned him recognition as the United Soccer Coaches Association D1 Staff of the Year and the American East Conference Coaching Staff of the Year in 2024. Before his time at UVM, Coach Dow had a strong coaching background, including a successful stint as an assistant at the Southern New Hampshire University, where he contributed to multiple NCAA tournament runs. Welcome to the Coaching Culture Podcast. My name is JP Nerman, and I'm joined by one of my co-hosts today, Nate Sanderson. The mission of this podcast is to help you to become a better leader and build a better team culture. To get the notes to this in every episode of the podcast, all you need to do is subscribe to the Team Culture Toolbox. It's the TOC weekly newsletter, and it's got a lot of great stuff in there, including the notes. And there's a link in the details of this episode that you can use to subscribe, or you can just head on over to tocculture.com. Lots of places to subscribe there. Rob, we are so excited to have you here on the podcast today. I'm excited to learn about you, how you build culture, but probably most important for me is to start with understanding Rob, and just understand Rob the coach, Rob the person, and really what's most important to you. And so when you think about coaching at Vermont, what's the most meaningful part for you of being the head coach at Vermont?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm super pumped to be here, and just have an opportunity to chat with some top end professionals, and and to continue to tell the story of this national championship, and but dig a little deeper. That's been on lots of different media outlets, but talk with some people that understand culture and leadership and values is it's what we do every day. So
Mhm.
I'm excited to learn something as well. But um, yeah, look, at Vermont, I think the most special thing about our athletic department, about a university, is the community uh, within the state of Vermont. When I've applied for the job to be the head coach here, Jeff Schulman, who is the AD, just said to me that for some of the greatness of this job, but also the greatest challenges of this job is that um, from UVM Athletics. Means a lot to the community. It's constantly in the in the spectacle of uh, everyone's, kind of living room. We don't have professional sports in the state of Vermont. So UVM Athletics is in our terms, like the Real Madrid of Madrid.
Mhm.
So I took that very seriously, with a lot of responsibility when getting the job. Um, and I keep learning how we can embed our program, even deeper into the roots of this state.
Mm. So what I'm hearing in that is that, when it comes to coaching soccer, it's not just you're coaching the team, it's not just you're important to the university, it's that you're important to the state, to the very community. It's such an important part. And when you think about from your perspective as a leader and as a person, what's most important about coaching a soccer team that has such significance in the state and in the community?
You have the core of any team or the people. Um, and I think if you're going to have a successful soccer team, like you must embrace diversity, um, and all forms, and um, and celebrate that, and really get to know what makes every individual special, because there is something. Um, I'm a very detail-oriented person. I think a lot of head coaches are. I drive my assistant coaches crazy in the morning time. I loosen up a little bit more in the afternoon. So they try to stay away from me in the morning. But and I want to, like I'm from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, which is 14 hours of a drive away from here. It's my wife and I and my two kids. We don't have family here. Um, one, I've tried to fill that void and that gap with our players' families, the families around the program that want to have access and get to know our players. Um, and there's just something, you know, with some filtering, but there's something great that each person can offer our team, and our team can offer our community.
Mm. What I hear in that is that coaching at Vermont provides a unique experience, not just for the athletes, but for you and your family to be able to have that deeper relationship with people. I've heard you speak on other podcasts about that, of just that there is a relationship that you start to form with various people, that you actually go out and spend time going to the stands, talking to people there. You're not just focusing on your team. And it seems to be done in a way that's really authentic. It's not about just can you raise more money for the program it's really about actually it's something that's very, very important to you on a personal level.
I've learned that it has to be, um, it has to be personal. I think I think there's a lot of things in which aligned with how I was brought up in this like small community within Collaborative Scotia, was very uh, athletic based, but community athletic based, rather than like this new model of youth sports. It's all business driven. Um, or for the most part, what we're seeing is like get into some tournament, go to a hotel, and drive or fly there, and um, and pay into these expensive tournaments. But we had this community center to our town that had two ice sheets, two soccer fields and back, two baseball fields, softball field, skate park. And it opened its doors, I think, when I was like 9 years old, and it was literally in my backyard. So every day after school, I would just go, and I could be in this in what's called Cole Harbor Place, and my mom could call the receptionist desk and just be like, "Hey, have you seen Rob recently?" "Oh yeah, I saw him running around eating some fries." Um, about 5 minutes ago, he's doing all right. So let's connect that back to Vermont. So Vermont, not a huge economy, right? So but it is a sustainable economy. People take care of their own. Um, and I really started to love and connect to back to like my personal roots and who I am. Um, and just understand how important it is um to grow, to grow the community of your team, and align that with why people chose to live in Vermont. There are a lot of people that move from a lot of other states to come here because of these value points. You want to give back, be in an environment where family is extremely important, be an environment where you got to work a little bit harder for what you get, um, for sure. It's never going to be easy. You got to do more with less. And then when you start hearing some of these stories, and allow some of like the people that care the most have access and input within your team. And we have this strategic planning group called the We 5 Club. It's after the band, like it's out of my generation, but let's not get into that. We can get into that later. Anyway, I really figured out who are our ultras who are there for like the reasons just to help our programs um improve and get better, and be, you know for our teams to be on the national stage and win championships. And these are my mentors, these are my coaches. There's 5 plus of them, and I think now 7. I learned so much, and they're businessmen or lead other leaders, psychologists. So it's been really important for me to drop like I'm the head coach, I know everything, and exemplify learning in front of my team, exemplify that culture that I don't like. I'll say many times I have gotten many game plans wrong, and I'll say we're not afraid to say that one was our mistake. We did not scout that player well enough. Um, or formation was wrong, but
Mm.
let's get back to it. We'll make it right. We won't make the same mistake twice.
Two things I've already learned from you in the first 10 minutes here, Rob. One is just a lot of times can we think about understanding our values so that we can take our values and almost impose them on the team and the culture that we take over. And then everybody just learns from us. And yet you have said, here are my values, here's my roots. Where can I best be fit? And do I best fit in this world, this landscape, or in sports? And so there's an intentional decision in that. And the second thing is I think oftentimes the head coach, of a college program, they're brought in to speak to the business leaders and share all their wisdom on team and leadership and culture. And yet you've had just an absolute humility in the fact of like, what can I learn from all these people within the community?
Thanks for identifying that and just talking through how hard it is to be a head coach. Like if you're talking about a really time intensive process where all these different factors are very intangible and hard to control. And we want as head coaches to control every detail. Um, but what I've learned in my 8 years specifically as being a head coach is I cannot. That keeps me up at night. I I I can ruin a culture within the team at the same time of just trying to micromanage and allow somebody not to be themselves. Um, and I think this is the objective of everyone. How do you have like this winning game plan, but also allow our players to be the most instinctual, on the field? And it goes well beyond, the technical, tactical, physical, and mental, components. It's deeper than that. And I in terms of the time, like specific the time it takes, I don't it's hard to find balance within it. I think that's where you go back into if you're going to do this, if you're going to take the approach of really allowing this holistic environment, developmental environment within your team, um, you have to find ways where it's going to bring your family into it, right? And it's going to bring your friends into it. You're going to meet your support groups around your team, um, and then you accumulate all of that into something that feels like very fulfilling, right? So where you can be okay with the lack of balance because it's what you would get, if you had a 9 to 5 and could, clock out and clock in, which is not, that just doesn't exist. So I wanted to identify the timepiece here and how to be okay with that.
You talk about the the timepiece, and I'm remembering being in a public speaking event once, and the speaker said the test of a great story is if you can remember it 3 days later. Like if you heard story and then 3 days later you can remember it and you're telling someone else. So when you think about the story of this past season, what is it that your team is saying? Like what's the story that's being retold separate from, hey, we won a national championship? Like in any great story, there's these micro storylines of different, adventures or tales within the broader story. So I'm just curious if there's a storyline separate from, hey, we won it all, and we did it here at Vermont. That's also kind of resonating within the community there.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really good question because uh, we didn't know exactly how it was done and just continued to be asked or people to be like, I think this is how you guys won, it's because of, your leadership or it's because of your talent or it's because, this game you really learn so much and then you kind of gather momentum from it. Comparison to like my first time the day after the national championship, if someone asked me how it happened and talking to you guys today, allowing myself to dissect this, what's consistent beyond, you guys having such a special team. My associate AD who was with this, Joe Gervais, the entire time and was kind of like a fly in the wall. He's really, really smart guy. He's like, look, you just had a good bunch of guys that wanted to be together all the time. And that's really hard because when you travel over 7,000 miles in the NCAA tournament, like it can get, like, okay, guys, that was good. Elite Eight. Thank you. We can chalk it up. Great season. People are going to remember this. How do you how do you keep things, interesting and from what people maybe didn't see the process but saw the connection? Um, we had rituals and traditions that we stuck to. So every team meal that we had, at the beginning of the meal, we would play trivia. And what the trivia does, and this is deeper into what I've told others, it one, you cannot use a phone in trivia. It's the rules, right? So phones go away as soon as the meal happens, which is a really valuable time. Second, the trivia occurs, we set the room up. There's my detailed piece to it, with these round tables, and we request this, and there'd be 6 or 7 people at these round tables. Has to be round tables, right? So everyone's facing each other. And phones goes down, everyone's looking at each other, and they start working together at an intellectual level. It has nothing to do with soccer. Nothing. So maybe we were in Pittsburgh. How many bridges are in Pittsburgh? Right? This is the question. Well, we did it so much and talked about a lot of times geography or what's unique. Our guys before the meal were researching the unique aspects of the city that we were in. So when according to Google's always our fact, like whatever Google says is right, So so it says, how many bridges are in Pittsburgh? And remember Mike Bleeker's table got it 100, like he got it like it's like 413 or something. He was spot on the number. But they look forward to being together. And if that can happen with the same grilled chicken and rice and salad that we're eating day after day, and that we're grateful to have the food, but where the coaches won't allow Mexican or I don't know, fried food or something to do something different. There's got to be, we've got to keep it interesting. And that is one example. We're really like, I'm again, detail guy. I want the same traditions and same rituals to happen consistently because it just builds also this identity that is so identity where it's inclusive.
Yeah, Rob,
We,
you mentioned
yeah,
like people ask, what did you do? Like, how did you do it? Was it this game?
yeah.
Was it this game? And they're dissecting like the recipe for success at that level. I want to flip that for a second and ask, what didn't you do?
Mm.
Meaning, like, what were you really intentional about as a head coach, as a staff, as a program of not doing that you feel like helped you achieve the level of success that you did?
Think we do film every day. Um, we do not lecture. We ask our players to give us the reasons why they were successful or were not, where there's ownership. Quick little story. We had this mutual friend that arrived to the Final Four between Marshall and UVM. We played each other in the final. And he popped down to our training session, and we were extremely loose, laughing, celebrating our seniors because it was the last pregame session that we were in. Um, and then this mutual friend went up to just see Marshall. He wasn't going to tell anyone how we're prepping, nor did we like do a lot of prep um, before the game on the field. Um, anyway, Marshall ended up saying like, "What is going on down there? Like, what? It seems like a circus." And maybe uh, the environment that we're in, we knew it was going to be a really difficult match, and it's going to be the most challenging match the program's ever been into. But that was tomorrow. Like let's enjoy today here, and all we've prepared. Like there's a reason why we were there. We've been tested, many times. Um, there's not anything new that we're going to bring to the table. So let's take the pressure off instead of put the pressure on, so that the guys can, that was a big thing for us. And you talk about so many coaches right now in the game of soccer are very tactical and trying to be very role specific. And within a team, I think, again, that's really important. But the, the most important here, according to me, is to allow our players to be confident within their strengths, and execute those at an instinctual level. And we do not overcoach. And when you get into this environment with, in our group, and like I said, we won the regular season at the Americas. We won the Americas tournament championship. We ended up winning the national championship, but we were um, we were prepared
Mhm.
for the moment, And the guys knew that.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
one other thing is maybe just that we point out more of their and celebrate more of their accomplishments. At a 60, maybe 65% level, and maybe 35% constructive criticism.
Yeah.
With
So you
some
don't
books
spend
like
all the
Catch Them Being Good, I think
catch them
that's
being
one of
good. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're more focused on that rather than just calling them out for their mistakes. You're not
yeah.
about lecturing. It's literally what I'm hearing there is a lot about empowering. You know
Mm.
what's enough? Like what's enough instruction? What's enough scout? What's enough? Like you recognize just adding more instruction, more control, more dictating their play, that doesn't necessarily provide the value, right? You're able to identify what's where are we getting diminishing returns, right? And you're able to know that. I think it's also worth pointing out that I'm just really impressed with your level of intentionality. I think a lot of people might be going, "Oh, trivia. Yeah, I could do trivia with my team." Like, and that's great. But like what you talked about was there's no phones, there's collaboration, it's routine, right? And by building that up over time, that becomes this tradition. There's competition. I'm sure there was laughter at that. And you did them in circles. You're literally like, no, we don't want square tables. We want circle tables, right? And all of a sudden, these little things that don't cost you any more money, right? They just require intentionality and time, lead to connection where the story of this team is just people that want to be with each other. And I know that like that has to be a really significant part of what made this national championship so meaningful for you. There's probably a lot of things that made winning a national championship awesome, but when you think about everything in all those benefits and all those awesome, all the great moments, what is the best part of winning a national championship for you?
When we won, this was in dramatic format. It was in an overtime goal, and but when we came back a month later, we hosted this parade, and on we have a pedestrian street called Church Street, retail and restaurants, and city shut that down, and our community packed it, and just seeing how much it meant to, like, all the kids, all the alums, all the parents, the role models in which, you know, again, we're in a small state. The kids know our players, whether it's from camp or they're coaching their club teams, or um, like I had no idea it meant this much. And I went shopping at LL Bean after Christmas and got a full store applaud, in you know, which was I did not expect it. It's really embarrassing, but um, it just it's been really one of the great, won a national championship. You're going to be like, everything's going to be easy, but reality is this is going to be the most challenging year of our program, defending this. But that energy that we hear, I still hear it, you know, getting like, thank you for what you did. Um, just give us hope, something to be, excited about, around that time of the year. And it
Mm,
just means so much. I mean, I have these letters on my bulletin board right here of just people pouring their hearts of how meaningful, the championship was and how we did it,
mm.
from their perspective.
And so when you think about that, like it's really the best part was the aspect of the community, what it meant to the community, how it gave them hope, how it gave them something to get excited about. For you as a leader, what's the best part about that?
Me as a workaholic, which and I'm sure I'm joined by you too as well, and that is that it just gives me more content to teach, back within our team. Um,
Mm,
and guys, it's now, you know, one, we have to celebrate what we did. Two, we also need to build our team for next year. which is a really interesting process that I have zero experience in. So, um, but community service, like teaching our guys now it's our job to give back is extremely important. And we've been committed to this. We've done a lot. We've done a lot of requests. We've tried to do as much as we can. We're splitting up in small groups, helping this underserved community, Boys and Girls Club, or we have a King Street Center that serves the youth in the state. Anyway, so that's super important. But also because we are going to have everyone's going to want to beat us, right? So we have to be even more committed to our values. Um, we cannot let this, get to our heads, as they say, and be overconfident. So I'm reading these every time I get a message, I show up at film 30 minutes before training and I read something new, you know, or like we ask someone else to share something that they have that's unique about what happened during the week. And I'll just say, like, maybe I bumped into this, um, you know, this alum, and they talked about, um, their teammate that may have passed away, but it actually brought all of us back together, and we are on this group chat, or we all showed up, for the tailgate in Cary, North Carolina, and bring that back to the table so that they're grateful. They continue to be grateful to be a part of the program.
All right, that's it for part one of our conversation with Rob. What struck me the most about Rob is he has a deep understanding of who he is as a person, what's most important, and strong values. At the same time, winning is really important. He wants to win. He is a competitor. The other thing I think Rob does incredibly well is just consistent little things to build culture. Instead of it being a weekly or a monthly thing, it's literally an everyday thing. It's not even an everyday thing. It's an all the time thing. So maybe take that with you, right? More little moments of connection and culture building and everything that you do. Now, if you found today's episode of the podcast, I hope that you'll share it, not just because it'll help get more people listening to the podcast, but it will help support Rob and the team he's building at Vermont. They aren't a big name in college athletics yet. However, the more people who know about the incredible culture at UVM, the more attractive they become to talented players. So it's a great way to support Rob as well. Thanks again for listening in to the Coaching Culture Podcast.